Hi, this is Carol Golden. I am the Executive Director of the Centers of Excellence for NAIFA, and we'll be starting in just a few minutes with Carefull. We'll give it just one more minute. I see now a lot of people are just coming on, so we'll give it just another 30 seconds before kickoff. Well, left over from the Super Bowl, sorry. Okay, so let me start by saying it's my pleasure to have Carefull as our sponsor for the Limited and Extended Care Planning Center. And you know, one of the things we know about being good agents and advisors is that creating trust with your client is a major advantage over agents and advisors who simply are salespeople. And one of the things we know about creating trust is sometimes solving, if not identifying, problems that maybe your clients haven't thought about. Well, the whole issue of being caught in the sandwich generation, of dealing with aging clients, etc., is a very difficult subject to bring up. But if you, as an advisor, an agent, an agency, can offer some advice that helps them with the situation they're facing with their parents and gives them a really solid way of preventing further and future issues from popping up, then I think that that gives you a distinction as an advisor. So I'm very pleased at this point to turn over our short webinar today to Todd Rovak, who will start us off here. Thanks, Todd.
Great. Thank you, Carol. Thanks, everybody, for joining. I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully you can see it. Again, I'm Todd Rovak, one of the founders at Carefull. Joining me today is Cameron Huddleston, our head of education and content, Michael Rubel, our head of product strategy. We are thrilled, as we've said said many times, to be a partner with LECP around what we call financial caregiving, which is a concept that we will get into. But everyone on this call, whether you know it or not, is part of the financial caregiving effort. A little later, we're going to hear from our head of education, Cameron Huddleston. We'll also be taking questions about technology, whether it's outside technology or it's Carefull's technology. So please put any questions in the chat, really informal, the way we're going to do this. So would love to answer questions along the way. But first, just to frame things, we are talking about a technology tool today. And typically, technology in this space is thought of as administrative or a tool for speed or efficiency. It's a delivery mechanism. It's compliance. It's technology. Frankly, at its worst, technology is transactional, right? It's that purchase moment, or it's how you do something transactional. Today, we want to talk about technology as a relationship builder. And because it's tech as a relationship builder, we're really talking about technology for this group as a business builder. So I want you to come away from today with an idea about how financial caregiving will be a very simple baseline part of your practice. And Carefull is one of the technologies that we hope will do that. So first, we should have to set a baseline of what is financial caregiving. There are 45 million people in the US who are what we call financial caregivers. Those are people who are looking after the daily money of someone else. And we believe this person is really underserved. We have so much attention on the older and aging population, which is important for us. But the people who take care of them and who have been pulled in are so important as well, right? So let's just think of it as a set of activities. Financial caregiving includes oversight, contribution, coordination, right? It's a ton of things. It's people logging into their parents' account and looking for fraud. It's ensuring that bills are paid on time. It's setting budgets. It's calling banks. It's often collecting funds from siblings to support mom and commingling the money, which is a mistake. It's 100 daily tasks and time and emotion. Maybe you've done this for yourself or a loved one, but maybe you know someone who has, because everyone gets here. And if you have, you know how unnecessarily hard it is over a 20-year financial relationship. Now, so that's the problem. But why do we care about this? We care because advisors and banks are losing what we call the wealth transfer battle. There's 24 trillion in generational wealth that's already underway. 9 out of 10 people will not use their parents' bank or advisor. And there's a lack of engagement when people are just not in dire need. So what's missing there is relationship continuity. And the gaps between transactions and the gap between your relationships with older adults and their adult children. So it's relationship continuity and ways to help that we're really after here. And that's where technology can help. The bridge, it's simple financial caregiving tools for your clients, for yourself, for their prospects. How can technology and tech tools bridge that gap? We're one of those answers. So Carefull is the first financial platform for older adults, the underserved people who take care of them financially, who are involved in their daily financial lives, but most importantly, for the financial professionals who support them and who are looking to support them and give them the tools. So we'll get into this in a minute, right? But just this is what Carefull does. Carefull is that platform for financial caregiving. Think of it as the first 3 things that we do. We provide smart, personalized financial, what we call financial caregiving monitoring, meaning we look for things that banks don't look for today in financial behavior and activity. Second thing we do is we enable objective data-based communications among a circle of trust, the siblings, the adult children, the people who need to get information, right? We think about it as faster fixes, fewer fights within families and faster fixes to protect assets that are in place. And then finally, we empower both generations with content, education, and a community to support them. All of this while keeping an adult in control of their finances, independent for as long as possible, and protecting them without the need for power of attorney right away. They stay in control. So today, advisors are providing a lot of tech tools. One of them is this Carefull service. They do this by simply turning on Carefull for their practice, which, and by doing it, it impactfully supports that deeper relationship across both generations, retaining assets, bringing in new clients, and opening up a marketing channel for other products, whether it's long-term care, insurance to wealth management, decumulation products, other forms of insurance. That's what we see. Just to give you a dramatic example of what's possible and what we see in this space. Many of you saw the study from last November from Johns Hopkins that concluded that dementia and Alzheimer's can first be found in the wallet up to 6 years before it can be diagnosed in the doctor's office. Think about that for a second. We can say that means that it is the transactional behavior is a vital sign, right? To be able to see something like Alzheimer's 6 years earlier. That's our data set. That's a data set that you can help out with. That's an area you can have an incredible impact. Now, where do they see that in the data? Credit score hits, financial mistakes, missed bills, payments, forgetfulness, changing in behavior. So that's some of the data that tools like Carefull can look for, some of the things we can look for. Carefull is capturing a data set that can spot impactful things from a life stage, a wellness, a needs perspective, but also, commercially impactful things like a financial need at the right time, whether it's consolidating assets, a specific wealth management offer, or the right long-term care insurance product. So that's the background. And we have a lot of expertise in financial caregiving at Carefull. Our lead expert on that, I'll introduce to you now, Cameron Huddleston is our head of education and content. She wrote Mom and Dad, We Need to Talk. Maybe this is a book you've read. If not, go get it. It's really about how to talk to your parents about their finances. And it's really the book about how to have these essential conversations within families. And it's something that we think can absolutely help here. And it's a big part of the Carefull experience as well. So take a minute before we take a break from technology before we get deeper into it, and talk about some of the from Cameron around some of the real her story, but probably some of the human stories that you see as well. So with that, over to Cameron.
Thanks, Todd. So
Sure.
as Todd said, I am Cameron Huddleston. I am Carefull's head of education and content. I did write a book called Mom and Dad, We Need to Talk. And I have been a personal finance journalist writing about money for more than 20 years. But I guess the real reason that I am an expert is because I was a financial caregiver for my mother for 12 years. When she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease at the age of 65, I knew that I was going to be the one to have to take care of her and to look after her finances because I was the child who lived closest to her. And something you might not realize is when someone is diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, they don't tell you. The doctor doesn't tell you. No one really tells you that that person is going to need someone to be looking after their finances for them from that point on. I mean, when my mom got her diagnosis, the doctor's office, we were just pretty much sent out on our own to figure out what to do. Fortunately, because I am a personal finance journalist, I knew what steps I needed to take to protect her. I knew I needed to get her in to meet with an attorney right away to update her estate planning documents and to name me power of attorney. I knew I needed to be paying attention to her spending and logging onto her bank account to see what was going on behind the scenes. I knew that I needed to go through her mail to catch all the donation requests that were coming in so she wouldn't give away all her money. I had to play detective to figure out what sort of financial accounts she had. I knew I had to protect her from scammers, and I knew I had to protect her from herself and the financial mistakes that she was going to be making as a result of cognitive decline. But this was back in 2008, and I didn't have a lot of tools to help me as a financial caregiver. I had to, like I said, log on to her bank account. I had to go through her files. I had to sort through the mail. I had to be there to answer those phone calls so the scammers couldn't get to her. And it was incredibly time consuming and it was incredibly stressful. And I thought I had gotten involved soon enough. But I realize now that I probably did not get involved with my mom's finances soon enough. Remember that study that Todd mentioned, the one by Johns Hopkins? Johns Hopkins researchers found that those with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias show a pattern of missed and late payments up to 6 years before there is a diagnosis. My mom passed away last January, and recently I got around to going through some of her documents that she had collected before I started managing her finances for her. And while I was going through old tax returns and bills and those sort of statements, I came across a collection notice for a healthcare bill. And then I found another and another. And these collection notices were from the year 2005, 3 years before my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And suddenly I was reminded of that research, that Johns Hopkins research, and I realized, oh my gosh, my mom was part of those statistics. She had forgotten to pay those bills. She was making financial mistakes well before she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And I felt like I had failed her, like I had not been involved soon enough in her finances. I mean, I can't imagine how many mistakes she might have been making because I was catching a lot once I did get involved. I mean, I remember the first time I checked her checking account, once I got access to her bank account, there was $40,000 in cash just sitting in a checking account. not in a savings account, not in a money market account. I knew that was not a safe place for that much money to be. I mean, I know she was writing checks left and right to charities, and she was a generous person, but she was giving to causes to which she had no connection. And so I had gotten involved, but like I said, looking back, I probably had not gotten involved soon enough. And I don't think most people do. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard from families of people who have dementia, and they didn't discover that they were having financial troubles until really it was too late. I mean, there was an AFA member, Brian Holtz, who didn't discover that his dad hadn't been paying for his long-term care insurance policy until the policy had lapsed. And luckily, he was able to get involved and fight to get it reinstated. I recently spoke with a financial advisor whose father had not been paying the mortgage. And they didn't find out about it until they got a knock on her parents' door, and someone was saying that the house was going to be auctioned the next day. He had early onset Alzheimer's disease and had not been paying the mortgage. There are so many stories like this. Fortunately, now there's technology that allows us to monitor accounts for those late and missed payments, for those recurring charitable contributions, for changes in spending patterns. But as an adult child, it's kind of a hard sell to tell your parents, hey, mom and dad, let me monitor your accounts. There might not be anything wrong with you now, but I want to see what's going on in case there are changes. But as financial advisors, you are in this really wonderful position to encourage your clients to use technology, to be monitoring their accounts. They're going to be much more receptive to a suggestion from you to use technology to monitor their accounts, to catch those mistakes, to catch those signs of fraud in the early stages before they become big problems. As children who are going to have to step into the role of being financial caregivers, it's a lot harder for us to talk our parents into letting us get involved. But as financial advisors, like I said, you are in that unique position to help your clients and to help their families spot these mistakes early on and prevent them from becoming really big financial problems. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Todd.
Great. Thank you, Cameron. And Cameron not is recovering from COVID, cutting it out. Thank you, Cameron, for the effort there. I'm gonna hopefully share my screen again. Hopefully you can see it. If Cameron's story sounds familiar, it's because I'll go back a second. It's because everyone gets to this stage. All of your prospects get to this stage. People in your business get to this stage. You may be familiar with this stage. And what's shocking about it is that everyone feels very alone when they get here. That's how few technologies have been put against this issue. Imagine 45 million financial caregivers in the world, in addition to the other 30 million older adults, and everyone feeling alone, right? Compare that to how much we talk about student loans for a second, how much press and how much we talk about it in the money movement. And yet this person is one of the most underserved, kind of underserved financial need states that's out there, right? And so huge opportunity to help. So I want you to think of Carefull this way, as a foundational core relationship building infrastructure for your practice. Right? Think of technology as there's a technology infrastructure for your practice beyond the transactional, towards the relationship driven, right? Carefull's really low engagement for the advisors who offer it, but it's very high engagement to the customers you give it to, and users. They open emails at 3 times the industry average. Those emails can have your branded messaging. They attach 4 to 5 accounts to be monitored on average. So you see share of wallet, you see share of family because they attach other people who should get alerts. So because they've been so underserved by technology can have a huge impact on people. And so the opportunity for technology like this is to build a relationship and get into the long-term planning conversation earlier, right? Or bundle it with policies. Frankly, we're seeing a lot of models from our long-term care partners. So here is Carefull today. Let's talk, want to talk about the three things it does and show it to you. The first is what we call smart monitoring. It's a body of financial caregiving monitoring. Think of a big AI engine that looks for things that banks just don't look for today. Duplicate payments, buying the same thing over and over again, missed payments or increases in the paying window, strange cash usage, very financial caregiving specific stuff. So charitable contributions, as Cameron talked about, political donations, both political parties, doesn't matter which one is your favorite, convinced older adults that the world was ending in the last election cycle and had them sign up for recurring deductions. All right. And so we look for those. We look for things like gift cards, which are money laundering techniques. But with 50 billion of fraud happening in this space, we also look for behavior change. People from within the trusted circle who are moving money out. You see that just as much as you see elder fraud. So it's very specific to each person. We don't ask you to go in and set limits and rules. Within minutes, Carefull looks back years and says, this is what normal looks like for this specific individual. And then we start to alert when behavior changes, if we see his mom is making mistakes or if something else is up. There's also things like core credit monitoring and identity theft protection baked in there as well, $1 million of identity theft insurance. So as an advisor, you're giving someone a security blanket, right, and saying, this is going to help you stay independent for longer. We got the basics covered, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is we facilitate communication between different financial caregiving adults, the loved one, advisors, anyone else. So everyone sees the same thing. Here you can start a conversation. If you see an alert, you can export it. There's been a pattern of missed payments. Ask a question to your advisor or your sibling. Fewer fights, faster fixes. That's what we want. The third, we teach and educate about what to do next. Cameron is a big part of that. When to actually get power of attorney? When do I need long-term care insurance? How should I open a joint bank account with my parent? All those actually specific questions we write about every week, 1 or 2 things a week. That becomes things that our advisors then turn and under their brand offer to their prospects and clients. And that's a very dynamic thing that it's not just 5 things that you can use. It's 2 new things each week if you think they're interesting. So content is a huge piece of it. The fourth is the advisor views that sit at the practice level. So if you're operating within a larger practice, the idea of putting a bunch of people in your practice on there and then being able to see the roll up, seeing who's getting a lot of alerts, and seeing and being able to have an impactful conversation. You can check it once a week. We have people who just check in and then see if anyone's getting a lot of alerts. That might be worth a phone call or reaching out, or maybe it's time to offer a product if you see them getting to the right place. So the advisor view, which we call Carefull Pro, is another part, and that's how practices, large, let's say practices of more than 1 or 2 people use Carefull in a way that is skilled. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but first, let's see it in action.
Is everything okay? That's the money question that matters for older adults and caregivers. People want to get back to their lives, jobs, and kids, not dig through finances. So Carefull shows a person what they need to know. The app opens to either a calm state or an alert state. The calm state signals that everything is okay. The alert state calls out anything that requires your attention. Note, everything is not an emergency. Carefull monitors your credit and scans the web for misuse of your personal data, while also looking for everything the banks don't look for. Anything that targets older adults, whether that's a scammer, misuse of funds from someone you trust, or just a money mistake that somebody made themselves. These are the transactions that look ordinary on paper, but actually plague older adults. Carefull looks for mistakes like charitable contributions, which can be recurring, unusual transfers or merchants, which can indicate a behavior change, potential late payments, gift card purchases, missing or additional income, and many, many more. And with every problem comes a one-tap solution directly in the app. Users can share alerts with the account holder, if they want to remind them to pay a bill, for example. Or start a chat with their circle of trusted stakeholders to discuss and resolve the mistake, so everyone sees and understands the same thing. Users can go deeper on their accounts in the Activity tab, exploring everything from cash trends to the biggest transactions to the highest billing merchants. Finally, the Learn tab offers real answers to real questions. This forum of experts and Carefull members is led by our head of education, journalist and financial caregiving author, Cameron Huddleston. The community is perfect for specific practical questions, as well as broader discussions about the experience of handling aging money matters. So that's what people get from Carefull: a smart second set of eyes on everything that matters to older adults. Assurance that everything's okay, alerts when something's up, and the answers and how-tos needed to navigate it all. When you use Carefull as a part of your business, you manage it in the Carefull Pro dashboard. First, use the Pro dashboard to invite clients to Carefull. They'll get a customized welcome from your practice with your own brand and a personal message. Once you've invited your clients, you can track their activity and alerts to see whose accounts are on track and which ones may be in need of a check-in. One simple overview with every single client helps you save time and act when you can have the most impact. Learn more and start your Carefull Pro trial by clicking the button below.
Okay, I'm gonna get to the next page here quickly.
It is everything is.
Okay, I think I got, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. You know, how we work with practices. By the way, you probably saw a nationwide logo in there. In a couple of weeks, there'll be a nationwide, there'll be a large-scale nationwide pilot with a piece of their insurance business, which we're proud of. We have some really great partners who trust Carefull to get ahead of moments of need, or bundle Carefull with moments at purchase moments. And so given how little engagement sometimes there is between when you buy something and when you use something. And so we're excited for that you're actually one of the first people who's hearing about it. There'll be a press release on it in about 2 weeks. But we have a lot of partners like that are really being thoughtful around the insurance space, and so you're going to start seeing hopefully a lot more. But we're out there today already. Have been out there with advisors, banks, long-term care providers, and insurance companies. We often do things like this depending on the size of the practice. We stand up on, we can stand up. This is a microsite that we stand up under your practice's brand. We'll use something like Safe Money Monitoring. This is CNN Bank, so it's a real bank out of Pennsylvania, about a 50 branch bank on the consumer retail banking side, where we take all of our content and our product and we just make it a part of your practice. So if you want to drive people to this area, this is something we can stand up for you. It provides, not only can they just learn and research about it under your brand, but it gives you a lot of information about, of course, share a wallet, share a family, as we talked about, and gives you cross-sell opportunities, insurance, checking, trust, all kinds of things like that. The idea for banks is to often they're looking to retain the assets that they have while turning one client into three, attracting the older adults that don't bank with them. The pro part went kind of quickly. I'll do that quickly. But the idea here is that you can invite someone directly from your practice in that advisor dashboard. That's what the invitation would look like. Again, your brand. You can see their circle here. So again, technology, that's what the topic is today, right? So we're talking about tech as infrastructure. So when someone adds people to their Carefull circle, those are the people they trust to get alerts. But you're also seeing other people, you're having some pretty warm leads of other people in their family who may not work with you, who may be contributing to those accounts. And that's what we call, everyone talks about share of wallet. We care about share of family as well. So you may have one client or one prospect, you start to be able to see 2, 3, 5 other people who are in their trusted circle that you have the ability to serve, reach out, or start a relationship with. Finally, advisors, really sometimes just use us for the often like to use us for the content. This is the resources tab where these people have very specific questions. We have found big broad questions around this life stage. It's good content, but the great content is, how do I do my parents' taxes? How do I stay independent for longer? Should I open this joint bank account? Is this a scam? What do I do if I think my brother is moving money out of my account? Like, all the stuff that sound like ugly questions are the best questions, right? And these are the questions where you have, again, 45 million people feeling very alone. And for you to build a relationship with really specific answers we have found is such a powerful tool. When we started Carefull, we thought this would be nice to have, and it has almost flipped to being such a huge part of it. When you send something around a particular scam or a particular question to someone, and then you put your own brand in the bottom of that and a link back, it's just really high engagement moment, right? People read these emails 3 times higher than they read other emails. So the content is a big piece of it. We make it easy to send this stuff from your practice. So here's a good example of what it looks like. You just grab something and send it. This is being used by a lot of different types of practices, right? So for this, we did a couple of Zoom interviews recently just to capture some thoughts from one person who's a daily money manager. Knowing not everyone needs to track clients as closely as this person does, we thought we would show you how it's being used by those who are really deep involved in helping.
Because this is a new field, it's very difficult to gain the trust of a client because you're not a name brand, right? To be able to lead a conversation with, I can offer you this type of protection, is very powerful. My name is Jeremy Nachtigal. I'm the principal and founder of Daily Navigator LLC, which is a daily money management organization helping the elder community and their adult children. There's fraud taking place all over the country. It's being targeted to the senior community, which we all know. I just had a conversation today with somebody. They wrote a check to Treasury and the checks were washed and then they were refilled out with a higher amount. Somebody cashed it. What Carefull has done, it's given me something to hang my hat on. If I'm having an issue with a charge, with an account, as a way to provide evidence of some unusual transaction that I'm seeing, adding support to my position, I have to negotiate with a bank or with a credit card company. Unlike other account flagging tools, what's nice about Carefull is the Care Circle, which allows other people in the family, let's say other professionals if need be, to be involved in the activities of a client that we're servicing. If there is something unusual going on in an account, that's flagged, and I'm given an email letting me know. That helps me in building my relationship with my client. One of these alerts noticed that there were 2 charges for the same company for the same amount of money within a week of each other. Well, upon further investigation, we learned that he had been signed up for another service at the same company, which he no longer used, but was unaware that he was still paying for it. Had I not had the app and had I not gotten that alert, that's something that may have just fallen by the wayside. The one word I would use to describe my experience with Carefull is fantastic, because Carefull is really the first company that provides a service focused on the elder community and their adult children who are managing not only their own households, but also helping to take care of their parents. Because
All right. So we'll conclude here. As part of the educational and content partnership that we've made with LECP and NAFA, We are offering an NAFA and LECP only price for this group through March 15th. So it's a pretty meaningful discount. And we have bank partners, insurance partners. What I'd say here, a lot of practices who are on queue to be onboarded. We're growing like crazy. So we're not yet a huge company though. So we pick our partners very carefully, which is, we talked about membership, but also the mission. And so LECP is a really important one for us to invest in. We're in this for the long haul. We really believe in this group. And so that's a bit of what's behind what we're doing here. So so it's a real investment for us, but we think there's just deep alignment here with this group. You are the people who are in this conversation already. You're the people who can see this, who can benefit the most from these tech tools. And we think, very selfishly, that when you build your business and when this works for your business, it's going to be great for us too. So we think we're really aligned in that idea, and that we're two sides of the same coin in a way. We might be in some ways the missing piece, so that together we can build our businesses. So my call to action for you, and is we're going to take questions now if there are any. But I would take advantage of this thing and try it. And I am and Cameron as well, on the NAFA Speakers Bureau. Myself, Cameron, we can speak to your local chapter, to your practice, to your company, if you're considering new ways to leverage technology and to add value with your clients, or to drive relationships. All right, if there's a relationship building conversation and ways to do that, we want to help elevate that conversation and be something in your toolkit. I'd also say you probably know someone who's going through this. So as you heard whether it's prospect, whether you're doing it for a parent or you've been pulled in already, something we call the trigger moment, whether it's something more serious where there's been a diagnosis, or you just know people who you want to help them stay independent, try it, right? You have a parent, you want a second set of eyes on their finances. It's a 5-minute onboarding, give it a shot, right? And get a feel for it so that you can talk about it in your own practice, get a feeling for what your clients will experience, and a second set of eyes on accounts. So with that, I'm going to stop. We're going to take questions now. I hope that this was informative and gives a sense for how technologies like Carefull can be a relationship builder for you. And so I'm happy to talk about that technology more broadly, how we work with practices and advisors and insurance companies. And we will open it up now if anyone has a question. Not seeing a lot of questions. There is a chat feature if you know how to use it. Not seeing a bunch. So what we're going to do is send out this presentation, a reminder of the offer at the end, the contact info for us, so that we can have a deeper conversation about it with you if you're interested. Very, very happy to do that, and have been really happy with the engagement from NAFA's and LECP so far. It's been great, and so we're excited to come back and do this again.
Hey, Todd, there is a question. Someone says, how many people in a family can be on one app?
Oh, great. Unlimited. Good question. I didn't see it in the chat. As unlimited. We don't charge additional. It's per family. So there's one person who's sort of, let's call it, at the center of the circle. That person is monitored, meaning that's we're monitoring one person's financial information, but you can add an unlimited amount of people to the circle to receive information on that. If you want to monitor an entirely different set of accounts, that would be a different Carefull account. But there's no limit to the amount of people you could add to a Carefull circle within a family. Hope that answers the question. Are you seeing, Cameron, other questions that just that one?
I don't know. I got one, but there's a question that was sent to me, but I'm not entirely sure, because it's just something like, what happens if it's 9 months since they didn't have the Carefull app? I don't entirely understand what that question is. I don't know if someone wants to Or that was sent to Carol or something.
Yeah, oh, well, let me clear that up. Stan, who is a wonderful Mayfrom member, had written and said that in California, if someone is diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and we have 6 months in order to repay if they have not paid their premium. So my question back to Stan actually is, well, what happens if it's 9 months? Because as we know, Brian's was longer than 6 months. And so I guess my question is, if Stan knows, he could stick it in the chat. What happens if it's more than 6 months? So in that case, quite often without an app like this one, you really don't know. And it can be way longer, and it's multiple accounts. It was the long-term care, but there are other, as you've gone through, other lapsed payments, payments to things they don't need, reoccurring payments they have forgotten to shut off. So I don't know if Stan wants to answer that.
I think he did. He said it was only 6 months for reinstatement, so that's what you get. If you're
Right.
if it's not 6 months, you're on your own, kind of is what we're saying. Yeah, and that's even
Right.
generous.
Yeah, and I think what we are seeing, at least with the few that I know that have telephoned me for reinstatement, not necessarily in Florida or California, it's usually more than 6 months because you don't always know. I mean, this person doesn't necessarily give a clue. So without monitoring, you just don't know.
Yeah, and Carol, if you caught it within 6 months, we consider that catching it pretty quick, and
Yeah.
most people don't. So
Yeah.
to your point of that means you were pretty on it and just caught a missed bill or two and got kind of lucky. As we
And
think about,
the interesting part, Todd, is that all companies have this third-party notification. I'm speaking directly about long-term care insurance. And yet, somehow that didn't happen. And I had said to this client, well, didn't you get the notification? Yes, but somehow they didn't quite follow through, or, so it's, I think with boomers turning 65, well, probably now 70, at a 10,000 a day clip.
Yeah.
This is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. You're seeing all kinds of regulation. We certainly are on. We're seeing elder fraud regulation now in Michigan, soon to come in Florida, we believe, where banks are on the hook for doing something if they see this. Just to show you how broad I think the effort is. There's a huge regulatory tailwind, positively from both parties, to do more and have financial institutions more on the hook for protecting and spotting elder fraud. It's not enough for a bank to say, okay, we watched this account drain and we didn't do anything about it. Or and that's coming to both on the advisory side. It's coming. That law was enacted and is now law of the land for Michigan banks. And so there's a whether it's proactive for relationship building, or it's frankly in some states now reactive of, I got to get it together so that if I'm accountable here, that I can see what's going on. We're certainly seeing things happen at the government level. On the long-term care insurance side, we're also seeing the providers. This is one of those win-win-win situations where, let's think of even from the we talk a lot about the consumer and the advisor, but the provider really wants those assets to be protected for longer. And the faster you need that policy, actually, it's always in their interest for you to run out of money and go straight to needing your policy. So if you think about one of the reasons why I think we have so much kind of energy and pull around long-term care insurance, it's, well, the advisor gets to add some value here, add new value in places that maybe and in ways they weren't before from a relationship standpoint. You get a really high engagement channel with somebody, even if they're just a prospect or a client. And the long-term care insurance provider really likes having it, right? It stops these like lapses in these issues, which are bad for them. Frankly, they don't like not pay. They don't like not paying it either. They want to be there for their clients. So they have interest in you in you continuing to pay, but they have also have interest in you staying, not these assets not draining due to fraud or some other reason. And so we found long-term care insurance has been a pretty high velocity place for us to add value.
Including the life industry too, because
Absolutely.
so much of long-term care is now hybrid product, but
Mhm.
they also, you have a family that's been, aware
Mhm.
their parents have long-term care or have invested in life with a rider or whatever, frankly, plain life insurance. And then they are very upset with the agent.
Yeah.
That this has lapsed and haven't you spoken to my parents? For me, one of the big advantages in the longevity aspects that we're seeing in our population is Carefull allows you to speak to multi-generations. In other words, you're just, I think, Todd, you said earlier in the broadcast that so many families do not continue with the same advisor. Well, that won't happen when you create a circle of trust using this app. So I think it's going to be very significant in the future for people to act in interest of their elders, but it frankly is in their own interest.
Absolutely.
As well. So with that, if there aren't any more questions, if Todd, you'd like to wrap up, or
Yeah.
Cameron?
Absolutely. First, thank you to this group for the time and engagement today. We really excited to put these tools out there for you to play with and test and send up to the provider if you're and say this should be part of this should be part of the package. Where, as you saw, as I mentioned, with Nationwide, we have a couple of others, some exciting things in the works in different forms, and we have more coming over the course of this year. So try it with your practice. Put some pressure on your the people that are providing policies, and because I think technology is going to be an element, and relationship building technology is going to be an element of this industry, whether it's for care coordination, as Stan rightly just put in the chat, which is an element of us, or whether it's for just basic financial caregiving, as we talk about. It's kind of it's on its way. We're probably in the second or third inning of a 9-inning game now, but we're not at the first anymore. And so I'm really very happy to talk more about it, go deeper, answer the questions that you don't want to hear, and encourage you to give it a try. And overall, love this platform and this group, given that we all share a mission. So big thanks on behalf of the Carefull team to Carol and to NAFA and LECP. And we will hope you got something out of this. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.